and they were around, but that was all. And so everybody did war work if they could. And that's the way life went till 1945. And then the men come back, and those got married that wasn't married, and so it was like they took up their lives again and all. Then we lived a year, and after Granddad and I got married in October of 45, we lived a year in Albany, Georgia. And then he decided to go back in the Army, and we did. Our first stop was Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And 37 Plymouth we did.
Of course, that's where Paul was born.
Paul was born in June of 47 in Fort Campbell. And then we had to go back home when Paul was 10 weeks old and live with my folks while Granddaddy went to Germany. Because Paul was too young to take over there at that time. Because it was only 2 years after the war was over, and they wouldn't allow them till they were old enough to have all their shops for overseas. And we got there in December of 47, and you would have thought the war had ended that day. Everything was still in rubble all around. And we had a fourth floor walk up and all this kind of stuff. And of course, Paul, he was a beautiful baby with red curly hair, you know, and blue eyes. And that was the only one that ever been. And then a year and a half later, here come Perry. He was born in Frankfurt, Germany, and he was born on the 24th day of November of 48. And of course, we had another beautiful little blonde boy with little white fuzzy hair. And he looked completely different than the other one. And very good-natured, easy child to raise. Now, that first one was too busy. He was into everything. And the second one was completely different than that first one, and that we could enjoy him because he didn't get into anything. And we saw a lot of the country. Of course, they don't remember it because they were too young. And they've seen a lot of Europe, but they don't know what they've seen. And we went to, of course, we saw a lot of Germany because we lived there, and we went to Italy and Luxembourg and The Hague and in Belgium, went to Holland twice and saw the tulips, and Switzerland we went to, and Berchtesgaden, that's down where Hitler had his house. Built this nice house, and it was just a resort area that we could go to and have vacations. We got pictures. Perry was cutting his first teeth when we got there, and he cried all the time because his gums were hurting him. And everybody put everything on his gums, even rub a little whiskey on him, keep him from crying. He had a terrible time cutting his teeth. But we got pictures, and they're all in that albums, and Paul's keeping my albums for me. They're all down there, but they're in time are going to be divided up among the family members to keep, you know. And I just told him, when we moved to Hiawassee, I asked Paul to just keep them at his house until everybody could get, you know, would keep them and take care of them. And he said he definitely wanted to give Chris to son because he knew she'd take care of them. Because they go back to the, oh my, some of them go back to the 30s when I was growing up. And you can't replace those. And that's the way our life's been. And then we come back to this country, went to Fort Stewart. We had 3 good years there. The boys enjoyed living there. And it was a nice place for children. We went to St. Petersburg and spent 28 years there. And that's kind of home country down there. That's really the only home that we had that we were settled in. We moved every 3 years, and we didn't have any roots anywhere. We didn't want to go back to Pinehurst or Carver. There's nobody there for us. So we stayed in St. Pete so the boys could have a home life and grow up and have good schools and things like that. And that's home to them. And that was where we really were settled. And I lived there longer than I've ever lived anywhere in my life. And that's true. I lived that long I did in Pinehurst, because I left at 21, see? And so here I am in the mountains in Hiawassee. But I go south when that weather starts getting cold. I want to tell you.
She wanted you to know that, because that's important to her right now.
That's important to me. I want all you children, generation now, know that I don't want to sit in the mountains in the winter. It's cold. And neither does anybody else but Granddaddy. But he's going with us. That's becoming a standard joke in the household.
Do you have any regrets about things that have happened in life? Any losses or?
Well, anytime you lose a family member, that's very hurtful. And but we, as Granddaddy said earlier, we've had a very good life. We've had a happy life, and all of our family members have been, I think, well raised, and we've all tried to teach them the good values of life and raise them the best we could. And I always said that if I had children, I wanted them to be brought up and raised of everything that was good, that they would learn all the bad things later in life. And I wanted them raised in a happy home, and I hope that's what they had. And
very happy.
They had, well, I thought they always had too many toys.
Well, you're right.
But Granddaddy he thought they never had enough. And so they just had things that they were really too young for a lot of things they had. But he could never, because he came up through the Depression years, he thought that y'all never would have too much, you know. And so, but we enjoyed raising them. They were, we looked after them, and I was very thankful that I could stay home with them and raise them. And like I was raised up, that my mother stayed home with me until I was almost grown, before she had to go to work again. And I think that means a lot to a child.
Early on, Dad paid a compliment to you as really being the force of religion in our family. You were the one that, you were more steeped in a religious background than he was.
I was raised, I went to church when I was a baby that you had to carry. See,
yes.
Back then we had no nurseries in our churches.
Your daddy was a Baptist, but your mama was a Methodist, and then came over to the Baptist church when they got married. So you, in essence, grew up in the church.
And I started as a young baby.
Yeah.
And I stayed in the church. Now, when I got in my teens, I was like most teenagers. I kind of strayed away from church. I didn't go regular. I went to the church.
Right.
But I wasn't regular in my church, and I didn't really get back into the church till I was in my 30s. And that was at Lake McGorry.
At Lake McGorry.
It's St. Pete.
When did you become a Christian, and why did you become a Christian?
I became a Christian when I was 11 years old. And it was in a revival. In the Baptist, what we call the Old Baptist Church. It was a big wooden church, and I've got the last picture of it in a frame right here. And there was no more. I got there in time to get mine. And they have since built a new church in another part of town. It's a brick church, but it's nice. And but the old church I grew up in was a beautiful old church, and I can remember we went to revival, and they would go on for 2 weeks. And it was just a great time, and we'd go every night, and we didn't even have to wear shoes as young kids. 11-year-olds, you don't wear shoes. And we just put on our thin dresses and go to the church. And that night that I joined, I'll never forget, and I remember the minister was Brother Harvey. He was a very dear man. And I was on one side of the church in the back, sitting by myself. And Daddy was over on the other side by himself, and Charles and my mama were sitting down front together. We were all separated, but the church was so full back that they put chairs out, filled up the Sunday school rooms. It was, you never seen so many people in church. And I wanted to go forward. I'd been wanting to go forward. And I'd get out to the end of the pew and stand there and swing on the post of the pew and just stand and hold on to it. I was afraid to go down the aisle by myself. That was the longest aisle I think I have ever seen.
As a child, it was real long.
It was long. I thought, I cannot go down there by myself. I was basically shy about going. And my daddy looked across there and saw me holding on to the bench. And he knew I wanted to go forward, and he come over where I was and stood beside me and said, if you want to go forward, you go ahead. And that was all it took. And I was just like